Hello, can you hear me okay? All right, great. Hi, welcome to the Showcase Theater. If you've been here earlier today, welcome back. Thank you very much for coming to my talk. Hope everybody's had a great first day at the conference. I know I have. It's been great. Hope everybody's had a chance to make some new connections and learn some new things. My name is Holly Dragoo. I work for New York Life in the Cyber Threat Intelligence team. And yeah, let's dive right into a couple stories about some experiences that I've had in the past. I spent about 20 years as a career intelligence analyst. Worked with academia and the Defense Department, also spent some time with law enforcement, and also now I'm in the finance sector. So I bring a unique perspective, having worked with a range of different stakeholders and executives. And that's really kind of unique in this field. So quick show of hands. Who here is familiar with and could probably explain cyber threat intelligence to a person on the street? Okay. And who here has ever had the chance to read a cyber threat intelligence report? All right. For those who have not, I recommend the APT-1 report from Mandiant from back in the day. It's about 2012, I think. Some of the information's a little dated, but a lot of it's not, and it's still very relevant today. It was one of the original reports that was very useful for folks to really start developing a picture about what advanced persistent threats look like and how they behave. So I'd like to take a second before we dive in deep about differentiating between data and information and intelligence. So data is a series of facts, right? Data points on a graph. They're indisputable. It's useful information, but they're not necessarily, reliant on each other. Data is data, right? Information is what happens when you start to string data points together, and you can start to glean context or make inferences from that. From those data points or from those facts. So does anybody want to hazard a guess on why or how intelligence would be different from data and information? Yeah. All right. Say again. It's opinionated. That's very good. It is, but it also is actionable. That's the key here. So for example, I can give you an the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, right? We have some facts in there. We got some data. There's a dog. There's a fox. There's some jumping. We know the fox is brown. We know the fox is quick. We know the dog is lazy. It's a bunch of different facts. And you're starting to, when you string them together, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, you can make some inferences about that, But what you can't do is predict the future. You don't know what happens after that. Right? But I've been studying foxes and I've been studying dogs for a long period of time, and I can make recommendations. The lazy dogs don't get up for anything, right? Lazy dog's not going to care. So, you can take action based on my recommendations and my assessment of that threat, right? So that's some of the difference. I think that public sector, we all have this idea in mind what that looks like, public sector intelligence. So when you think about that, you're thinking about hackers, you're thinking about secrets and military support, et cetera, and all that's true, but what really differentiates them from the private sector is the reliance on attribution, right? They want to know who wrote the exploit, who dropped the code, who dropped the bomb. That's really the important part for them. Now, private sector community is a lot different. While attribution is not irrelevant, it's certainly less important. And that's, they're really just, how do I stop the bleeding? How do I get the bad guy off my network? And what's the cost going to look like for me? So the focus is different. And I think they really, in the private sector, there's a lot of consternation over, is this a technical function that belongs on a SOC desk? Or is this really kind of like cyber news that's tailored to the organization? And the short answer is it's both, right? CTI is really useful. You can help make resource allocations based on your intelligence assessment of a given product. You can help with vendor selection. You can help with incident response and everyday decision making. And the other side of this, the threat analysis coin here is vulnerability management, right? So VM is often conflated with threat analysis, and some teams really have a hard time not stepping on each other's toes. But especially when it comes to things like 0 days. So, for example, vulnerability management is really how do we defend the castle, right? How do we strengthen the portcullis of the door? How do we fortify the windows of this castle? And how do we patch all the vulnerabilities in the castle? But threat analysis, to flip the script, is really focusing on what's inbound, what is coming at us, and what's the nature of that threat, characterizing the threat landscape. Is there a bunch of cavalry people with bows and arrows on it, coming at the castle, or is it a bunch of infantry people, heading for the front door, right? So once you're able to characterize the nature of that threat, you can decide where best to allocate your vulnerability management focus, right? That's not to say that VM teams are not capable of prioritizing on their own, but without having that threat input, there could be better changes or improvements made on that. So really, in all of this, tools matter most, right? So industry standard is to try to have a threat intelligence platform or a TIP, and this helps address that automated function, that SOC desk function, where you take indicators of compromise or IOCs, and you can feed those. These are like email addresses, hash files, bad IP addresses, etc. And you can feed those into the tip, either through a paid premium feed, open source feeds, sharing groups, etc. And you can have all that data pushed into the tip. That data gets sessionized, and then you can push that forward into your SIM tool or EDR tool, etc., for automated blocking, etc. There's tools out there that are promising AI versions of this and everything too, and I look forward to seeing where that goes. But really, you've probably also seen some spider diagrams where one actor is linked to another actor, and then it reveals a third connection that you weren't aware of. Those kind of spider diagrams. Tips usually do those, right? And they're great discovery tools, and we really need them. But there's some quality control issues too, right? Anybody can upload information to a tip. You can pull articles off the internet and upload them into a tip. You can have your own team's articles and upload them into the tip. And it's not necessarily the most current data that's out there. So you need repositories, and you really need to know, something reliable that has, basically a database of information that's there for you. Here's an example of Mandiant Advantage, and this is a tool that we recently started using in the last year. It's fantastic. We have a profile here of UNC 3944, which is often reported in the news as scattered spider. And you can see that we have tabs for the MITRE attack analysis. We have timeline analysis, timeline clusters. And that's really great, since a lot of activity by these actors, out there are, it goes into, kind of remission of sorts, or they take a break and they rebrand often. So, it's good for a sanity check to see, is there a lot of activity that we know is current right now, or have they not been seen in the last 6 months, that kind of thing. That's really unique to this tool. There's other tools that I've seen that are, advertising this feature, but, it's always in the next release, right? It's always down the road. So this is a really great feature that we use, as well as the malware analysis, right? And being able to look at the tool, see that they have different malware associated with this particular group, enables our threat hunting capacity, right? So, for example, in this particular group, they use a tool for copying data for exfiltration on target networks called, I think it's rclone. And we built a special threat hunt around that. And in the process of looking for, information about rclone and getting the information from Mandiant here, we also discovered that they use Impacket, which is another tool that they use for uploading malicious software onto target networks. So we created a separate threat hunt surrounding that. So other tools do associate malware with threat actor groups, but it's difficult to find, and this seems very intuitive, right? In in another vendor that I'm aware of that provides this information, you actually have to know the malware in advance to query on the malware in order for that to show up in a result that associates it with the threat actor group. You can't just like go to the threat actor group and have a list of all the stuff that's there, which they do here, which is very useful. Another gold standard tool that we use is VirusTotal, and beyond just the usual vetting in IOC, just to see if they have any known malicious connection, we use them for detecting typo squatting, right? So if a malicious actor is trying to craft a phishing email with a lure in there with NewYorkLife.com, and they might alter the spelling of that to be NewYorkLife.com with a C instead of a K or something like that. And VirusTotal will send us an alert saying that they've detected that a threat actor is conducting that type of activity, and then we can send it to our legal folks so they can issue a takedown request or something of that nature. So again, that's taking action based on the intelligence, right? And it's custom tailored for the organization that we have. It's not just glorified RSS feed. So this is how I think a lot of folks trip up on how can we make this unique to our organization. So the things I've learned to try to kind of wrap things up here, there's no such thing as 100% security anywhere. Just in case that's not clear, I'll say it again for the people in the back. There is no such thing as 100% security anywhere, right? There's always going to be some level of risk involved in no matter what kind of tools that you have out there. And your deliverables are only as good as your data and your tools. If you have a really talented CTI team, it doesn't mean a hill of beans if they don't have access to the information and the tools to access that information, right? It's really important. So, if they're asking for a $300,000 tool, ask them why that is, get the justification, and then give it to them because they need access to that data, right? And just looking things up online is not enough, right? Tools are never going to be, having said that, tools are never going to be the panacea, right? They're not going to fix everything, but they're going to provide you with a lot of data. And, having to write assessments my whole career, and you have to, being asked questions, sometimes ludicrous questions that really involve, a lot of specialized engineering knowledge or signals knowledge or what have you. You're forced to kind of develop a certain amount of confidence in your assessments and really stand by them. So we, as analysts, oftentimes have the reputation for being a little bit prima donna, right? But it really behooves us to work more with the vendors. And we're just inundated with so many different tools every day. It's like, here's a new tool that'll do this for you. Here's a new tool that'll do that for you. Enough already. I really have seen them all. I'm not interested. I can't because it's not perfect. They're not perfect. But we need to do a better job. If there's any analysts in the crowd here, we need to do a better job about working with the vendors to really improve the product for everybody, right? And if that means getting down to the nitnoid detail of I need a drop-down menu on the left that does 14 days instead of 7-day query, that's what it takes. And definitely be mindful of vendors that claim that they'll be able to solve all your problems, right? That's just inherently suspicious to me. As there's no replacement for the human analyst yet, right? So the whole Google Next is focused on AI, right? Where it's AI this, AI that. I think I should get up here and do the AI dance, right? But it is not there yet in terms of CTI. There's a lot of automated solutions, often addressing the more technical aspects, like what we talked about earlier, especially some of the automated threat indicators and how to identify them or signal alerts. That's fantastic, and I really look forward to where that's really headed. I'm excited to see some of the beta testing that we've done even with Mandiant is really, I'm looking forward to it. However, trying to write a report or trying to use AI to establish some kind of connection or text, writing an analytic piece really requires the human element. You can't tell a story. You can't talk about quick foxes and lazy dogs without making sure that it makes sense grammatically and makes sense, thematically, and makes sense within the context of the broader sense of data that you already have. So, and with that, I'll close by saying that there is no such thing as predictive intelligence, in spite of what literally every single stakeholder would prefer it to be. So you cannot tell the future, but you can make a pretty good educated guess, right? You can make a pretty well-informed decision, but it's incumbent upon us as analysts to really make sure that we know that those limitations are expressed when we're also giving our assessments. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming and listening, and I'll take any questions if there are any.